Not since Gough Whitlam went to China in the early 70s has there been such anticipation about an Australian visit to America's biggest strategic rival.
I can't think of a trip by an Australian Prime Minister since then, in the last 50 years, which will be scrutinised as closely as this one.
Nearly 2 years after his first prime ministerial journey to China, Anthony Albanese will return this weekend with a delegation of corporate heavyweights, including Andrew Forrest and senior executives of BHP and Macquarie Bank. There is the tantalising prospect of fresh deal-making.
China's an important trading partner for Australia. 25% of our exports go to China. What that means is jobs. And one of the things that my government prioritises is jobs.
Albanese is keen to keep up the momentum after negotiating an end to Beijing's trade hostilities in his first term. But he's also facing criticism that his relationship with Xi Jinping hangs a lantern on his inability to secure a meeting with Donald Trump.
This is the fourth meeting that the Prime Minister's had with the leader of China, but this is a totalitarian regime. We've got to understand that. And Mr Trump has not had a meeting with the Prime Minister yet.
We've restored $20 billion worth of trade with China. That's good for our farmers. It's certainly good for Barnaby's constituents.
So it's great for farmers, winemakers, BHP, Rio Tinto. But is that more important to the Australian public than national security?
I think the Australian public is keen for the economic relationship to continue, but there remains a deep-seated fear and phobia about China's ultimate intentions.
China is unmistakably vital to Australia's economy, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. John Garneau is a former advisor to Malcolm Turnbull and now helps investors understand China. He believes Xi Jinping is retooling his economy for trouble ahead, cutting China's reliance on Australia and other Western partners.
I guess this is the flip side of Australia's opportunity and its challenge. The opportunity is to make the most of the kinds of trade opportunities that are being opened up right now. This is good for jobs in Australia, this is good for profits, this is good for tax revenues in Canberra, and at the same time avoid creating or increasing our dependency on a Chinese market that won't necessarily always be there.
Alongside the inevitable panda diplomacy, Albanese will likely be tough on China, albeit behind closed doors. In public, the government is pressing ahead with an election promise to restore Australian ownership of the Port of Darwin, which was leased to a Chinese company under the Abbott government. But there's pressure to do more, like pushing China to release the Australian writer who was handed a death sentence last year on espionage charges.
What does good look like? I think bringing Young Hung Jun home would be a very good outcome.
And then there are the Chinese warships that circumnavigated Australia's coastline just before the federal election.
I don't think there's any doubt the Prime Minister will raise some of these more uncomfortable military incidents. He'll do it in private. He won't come out in the open and say that he gave Xi Jinping a lecture. He can't fly out of Beijing having us believe that those strains and tensions that are going to be commonplace to this relationship going forward were not raised.
The Prime Minister is on a mission to assert an Australia-first posture, but hanging over this trip, the response from Washington. It's a tightrope walk, not without risk.
The worst outcome, I think, for the Prime Minister would be if, for example, Xi Jinping starts to talk about the fact that he's sort of moving Australia into a different orbit. Even if that's not true, the perception of it will be something I think the government wants to avoid.
If it looks like the Prime Minister is celebrating trade opportunities without paying due attention to the risks and the challenges, I think that there's a chance that could be mischaracterised by China in a way that's disadvantageous to Australia.
The Foreign Minister has been visiting other neighbours attending the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur this week. Foreign Minister Penny Wong joins me now. Welcome to the programme, Foreign Minister.
Good to be with you, Sarah.
Now, I want to quote from your speech today. You said that we're seeing the worrying pace of China's nuclear and conventional military build-up, that China's objective is to change the balance of power in the region. How imminent is the danger for Taiwan?
Look, I gave that speech as part of a discussion with our friends in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN, about the importance of us working together. And I talked about the importance of a region where no country dominates and no country is dominated, a region where, as I described it, there is a balance of power, which of course requires continued US engagement. So, you know, our position is we continue to work for that region, a region with a power that is in balance, where no country dominates and no country is dominated. I'm sorry about the wind, Sarah, it just blew up.
You can't do anything about the wind, but I just want to stay with that idea for a minute. You're quite specific in your language. You're talking about the worrying pace of China's nuclear and conventional military build-up. What is that nuclear and conventional military build-up aimed to achieve?
This is not, this is not a new articulation. I think you'll find, certainly in the context of the Defence Strategic Review, and what Richard has said, the Deputy Prime Minister has said over a period of time, that it is the same proposition. You know, we've been clear about that, and we've also been clear about how we respond to that. And we respond to that by working with other countries, by working with the United States, our principal strategic partner, by working with Quad countries, including particularly Japan, by working with India, and by what we do. We want to contribute to both deterrence and reassurance in order to prevent conflict and preserve peace.
Now, at the same time, the Prime Minister recently, and you today in this speech that I just referred to, you've both made a point of underlining Australia's independence from the US. How will those messages be heard in Washington?
What I said in today's speech was very clear. I said we are a proud trading nation. Our markets will remain open. Our markets will remain open to the countries of Southeast Asia, our second largest trading bloc. We will continue to adhere to our free trade agreements, and in fact we will strengthen them. And we will do all of that because that is in the interests of Australian jobs and Australian prosperity. We're a great trading nation. We know that our economic strength in great part depends on our capacity to trade. So my message very clearly to this audience was that we will continue to trade with you. It's in your interests and it's in our interests.
At the same time, you parse your words incredibly carefully, so I'm interested in the repetition of the message from you and the Prime Minister about Australia's independence. So the question is not so much the audience today, but what the audience in the United States, considering AUKUS at the moment, what they will make of those messages.
I was very clear when I was in the United States to repeat the same messages that we repeated, in fact, during the election campaign when the Trump administration first imposed tariffs. We said then, and we continue to say, you know, we think tariffs are unwarranted and unjustified. We believe they are an act of economic self-harm. We will not be responding in kind. And we, in these markets, you know, I'm here in Kuala Lumpur, we will continue to keep our markets open because it is in the interests of Australians and their incomes and their jobs for us to continue to trade with the countries of the world and to, in fact, grow our trading relationship, our economic relationship with Southeast Asia. China is our largest trading partner. The countries of Southeast Asia are our second largest. Now, we need to continue to invest in expanding that economic relationship because it's in the interests of us, our prosperity, Australian prosperity. It's also in the interests of the stability of the region.
But a question about that free trade. Is free trade with China on artificial intelligence permanently off the table?
Look, I've seen reports of the ambassador's comments about this, and I've seen the Prime Minister's response. Obviously, we will determine what we want to include in any any free trade agreement with China. We have a free trade agreement in place. We think it's working well. Of course, we from time to time with other countries will periodically review those agreements, but we'll also always look at any agreements from the perspective of Australia's national interests.
Our political editor Jacob Greber just raised the case in his package before this, the situation with Dr. Jan Henjung. Is there anything that... Yes, is there anything the Prime Minister can do on this trip to secure his release?
Well, what I would say to you is what I have consistently said. We continue to advocate for Dr. Yang. We continue to speak with the Chinese authorities at all appropriate levels, including from me to Foreign Minister Wang Yi. We can continue to make representations on his behalf. We would like to see Dr. Yang united with his family.
Just one question on the Middle East, Foreign Minister. How would you describe the Israeli government's plan to move 600,000, just to begin with, 600,000 Palestinians to a camp in Rafah?
Well, look, the situation in Gaza is awful. It's horrific. The humanitarian situation is catastrophic. Australia has long been a part of the international call for ceasefire. We continue to do that. We continue to advocate for the release of hostages, and we continue to advocate for aid to flow unimpeded. We joined a statement by many other countries, I think some 22 other countries to that effect, some time ago, and we repeat that call today.
Foreign Minister, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Good to speak with you.